Alrighty guys, welcome back to another one. In this video, we're going to be putting together a 14 pellet #1 buckshot load in 2 3/4 inch 12 gauge using the MG 42 wad. Now, why nickel plated? Well, nickel plated lead shot and bismuth, it is a little bit harder than standard lead or lead that's been coated with copper or zinc. Nickel plating is just a little bit harder, therefore, in theory anyway, it should pattern a little bit better than standard lead shot. I don't have a lot of this nickel plated #1. It is true 30 cal #1. I broke down a box of Fiocchi Exacta double-aught buck. Now, Fiocchi claims it was double-aught buckshot. However, when you looked in the shell, it was a clear shell, all 9 pellets were inside of a wad, which told me right there that's not 33 caliber double-aught buck. I was expecting it to be 31 cal, maybe 32 caliber, but it wasn't even that. When I measured one with the calipers, it was 30 caliber. And in my head, I'm thinking, there's no way they're using #1 buck and trying to pass it off as double-aught buck, but they were. I checked it on the scale too. They're 40 grains each, which is what #1 buck weighs, 40 grains. And that's crazy. They're using #1 buck and calling it double-aught. That being said, if you guys don't know, factories will use whatever they want and call it double-aught buck. Let's see, Winchester and Remington, and sometimes Federal, not always, and Hornady sometimes, they'll use 32 cal, which is technically single-aught, and they'll call it double-aught buck, and they do that probably because you can get a little bit more velocity with less powder than you could with 33 cal double-aught buck. The payload weight will be slightly less, therefore allowing you to use a little bit less powder to get whatever velocity they're trying to get. Another reason is 32 cal just stacks a little bit better than 33 cal in wads. So they're probably thinking about pattern efficiency, although a lot of double-aught buck doesn't come inside of a wad. I've seen 31 cal being passed off as a double-aught buck, and that's not double-aught. 32 cal is considered by some people to be double-aught buck, even though it really isn't. 31 cal is also a single-aught size. It's kind of confusing. Fiocchi, in their Exacta line, at least they were as of last year when I bought these, are using 30 cal #1 buck for double-aught buck, and I've seen B&P use 28 caliber as double-aught buck. They have, or at least had in the 90s, a 15 pellet double-aught buck load in 2 3/4 inch, and it's not double-aught buck or anything even close to it. It's in between #2 buck and #1 buck. 15 pellets of true double-aught buck weighs 1 7/8 or right close to it. The loads that B&P were passing off as a 15 pellet double-aught buck load in 2 3/4 inch, I think it only weighed 1 1/8. Anyway, guys, enough rambling. I just wanted to explain some of that for, well, just because. Anyway, we're using a Fiocchi hull, a Fiocchi buckshot and a Fiocchi hull. But yeah, this is a twice-fired blue Rano. This was originally a clear hull, but blue. They looked really nice, actually. Huge fan of these. But yeah, let's kick that primer out. This actually has a Fiocchi primer in it. I do have some of those, not a bunch. But let's see. Resize rings right here. Alright, primer's out. We are resized. We're going back with a Fiocchi primer because, again, I have some. Now, if you don't have Fiocchi primers, well, you need to get a primer pocket conditioner from Ballistic Products or Three Loaders Network. They sell them, and they work. They're very simple to use. I do have a video on that if you guys want to check that out, how to use one. Or Ballistic Products does right now have Rio primers in stock, which are Euro size. They will fit these Fiocchi hulls like a glove. American size primers, Federals, Remington, CCIs, Winchesters, they are not a good fit in these Euro hulls. Sometimes they're such a poor fit they fall right out. The poor man's solution to it, what I used to do, is get a piece of clear or masking tape and wrap it halfway around the primer and then seat it. That works. It's the poor man's way of doing it. Powder charge is 29 grains of long shot. This will get you about 1250 FPS. This load is going to be very close to a 1 3/8 ounce load, just shy of it. Long shot is my favorite powder. I use it for every gauge. 10 through 32 most commonly, but you can use it in 410 too for slugs. It'll work for that too, but it's not really a good fit for 410 standard loads. The MG42 wad. This is actually one of our favorite wads. Consistently one of the best performing wads we've ever tested. 14 pellets of nickel plated #1 buckshot. This is again true 30 caliber. Let me actually turn the camera around and get you guys a better view of this if you've never seen nickel plated shot. And here's what the nickel plated #1 buckshot looks like. You can see it obviously is silver like nickel, and it's pretty shiny. So again, that's 14 pellets. I will give you the lead payload weight in just a moment, these stacked by twos. The total lead payload weight is 1.3 ounces even. So we are in between 1.25 ounces and 1 3/8, closer to 1 3/8, or 1 1/4 I meant. But still, we need to use a powder charge for 1 3/8. Buffer is optional, but if you want tighter patterns at longer ranges, you need to use some buffer. Ballistic Products ITX is what I'm using, which has been rebranded to BSB, but it's the same thing. A little bit more. The total payload weight is 1.35 ounces, so just shy of 1 3/8, which is 1.375 on the scale. This has a 6-point crimp, so you need one of the points in the crimp facing you. Back station of the reload all. Very nice. These Fiocchi hulls actually tend to crimp pretty good. You can see we're not bulged anywhere. Great looking shell. And here's how it looks after hitting it with the GAP BN2. Notice the nice taper, and we have a little bit deeper set crimp. This almost looks like a factory shell. Pretty good. I know someone's going to ask this. No, nickel plated shot or copper plated or zinc plated, it doesn't have any effect on pressure, neither does powder coating, but it certainly is some pretty nice shot. And again, in theory, it should pattern better than non-plated or copper or zinc or powder-coated pellets. There is a downside. Nickel-plated buckshot and lead shot in general is a little bit more expensive than regular lead or copper, etc. If you want to know how these pattern, well, we've shot a bunch of these on and off camera. They generally hold a basketball-sized pattern at 42 yards out of a Mossberg A35 using a Kicks 680 GT Goblin Thunder. We get roughly the same size pattern out of a regular full choke flush mount Carlson's in a partner pump. The partner pump has a standard 12 gauge bore. The 835 is overbored to 10 gauge. They get about the same size patterns, but the 835 is using a extended super extra full choke for the 10 gauge bore. 30 caliber #1 buck and 31 cal single aught are probably my two favorite buckshot sizes. Namely because 30 cal fits in, well, anything from 24 gauge up through 10 gauge or bigger. If you have bigger gauges than 10, I don't, but I'm really wanting an 8 gauge. 31 cal fits in 20 gauge and up. They're two great sizes. They're also a little bit better for stuff like home defense because the pellets don't tend to overpenetrate quite as bad as 33 cal double-aught buck will, although #1 buck still will overpenetrate, especially at really close ranges, home defense, or if it's loaded to high velocities. Generally, whenever I'm loading a home defense style load using #1 buck, I switch out between #1 and #4 if you guys were curious. I keep the velocity somewhere around 1100 FPS. Same with the #4 buck or the lead BBs I sometimes use. Again, I switch out. But yeah, I keep my home defense style loads around 1100 FPS to reduce the chance of overpenetration. If you're curious as to what my home defense shotgun is, it is the H&R Partner Pump. It's a little bit long by most people's standards for home defense, but it is a cheaper shotgun. I paid 200 bucks for it. And it's a buttery smooth action. It's actually a very nice quality shotgun, made in China, but that's besides the point. The gun is a beast. It's an awesome shotgun. I don't care if it gets locked up in evidence for a while. It's what I use. But anyway, guys, we want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below and we'll get back to you. And if you want to, go check out our Patreon. It's as low as $1 a month and you guys get early access to content. A link to that, as well as a link to our Instagram and Rumble accounts, will be in the description below. But other than that, you guys take it easy and we'll see you in the next one.